informational meeting on the greenhouse gas emission goals. And we're going to, open, there you go. Going to open the informational meeting on the parts pairing provisions.
They called Senator Summers.
There we go. Thank you. Just a minute to get.
Take your time. While we've been walking, I'm still in charge.
That's right.
Can we adjourn?
Yes, we can. And I've got the sine die resolution in my committee, so let's just keep it going.
Let's go. Let's roll with that.
Can we finish everything in the next couple of days?
Yeah, no, not a problem. Piece of cake.
I got the gavel. We can do it all. Senator Solomon, welcome.
Thank you so much. Just give me 1 second here to open up my computer. So thank you, Vice Chair Finley and members of the committee. For the record, I am Janine Solomon. I am the state senator for Senate District 15, which includes areas of Forest Grove, Cornelius, Hillsborough, and the Rock Creek area of Washington County. I am before you today to engage in a little discussion, an informational meeting regarding a bill that myself and advocates have been working on for a very long time, called Right to Repair. This is Senate Bill 1596, and today what I really want to specifically talk about is around parts pairing. And really just wanted to chat with you to say that this bill has a long history. So this is the 4th time coming regarding this bill coming before us, and it looks very different from last year's bill, which was Senate Bill 542, which we passed out of this committee. The language around prohibiting parts pairing was much broader in the 2023 bill, in Senate Bill 542. We brought stakeholders together. We listened to industry to better understand what they use parts pairing for and how they use it. The results of that robust conversation and discussion was to come together and create the most comprehensive policy for right to repair, with really thoughtful considerations that work for both industry and consumers. And we are not, first and foremost, telling companies that they cannot parts pair. That was one of the issues that we found in language for 542. So we're just ensuring that they don't use parts pairing to harm consumers and independent providers. That's all that the language states in the bill on page 4, lines 7 through 14. Now, older attempts of the parts pairing prohibited using or requiring the use of internet connection. That's what it had in older versions of, when we talked about parts pairing, that we couldn't require them to do so. Well, in that discussion with industry and such, they found that language wasn't going to work, and repair shops and independent dealers. That language actually wasn't going to work to the benefit of consumers and to this the ability to repair items. So there has been a lot of conversation in this particular bill around parts pairing, and how it has said that, well, it's not in the California bill, so why is it not? I mean, why do we have to have it in the Oregon bill? And I want to just really talk about, and just to really provide some clarity, that the bill introduced in California, while it did not have the internet connection part and provision to it, it wasn't the language of now, it was the internet connection part. While it didn't have that in the printed version, it was something that was negotiated out with industry and with the proponents of the bill, the folks, so the legislators that were working on the bill, between the sponsor and industry privately. That was taken out of the bill before it was then in print for everyone to see. So it's fair to say that advocates wanted the internet language originally in the California bill, and it ended up not being included due to that concern with industry sharing that concern around the requiring or prohibiting the use of internet connection. So while it was not in the draft of the California bill, it did, however, a couple of other states that did pass right to repairing, right to repair, did in fact have a form of parts pairing in it. So New York had the internet access language initially in it, but it was taken out in the final version. And Minnesota's law actually has parts pairing language, which is broader than ours, the current Senate Bill 1596, although it's really not clearly communicated in that bill, and it just didn't provide, I think, ultimate clarity for folks. And that's why in talking with folks, we realized that the broader definition of parts pairing in Senate Bill 542 was not a direction we could go in. And so we really narrowed it down. And as you can see, we have the language of what was in Senate Bill 542 in 2023, and then what is in the bill today in Senate Bill 1596. And I really just want to reiterate with you that this is about making sure that it is focused on very specific anti-consumer behavior. So making sure that parts pairing is, you can do it. You absolutely can do it. We heard from industry when we heard this in a hearing before that they parts pair. We just want to make sure that the language is stated so that we don't want to hinder independent shops like Free Geek, and in fully taking part of Senate Bill 1596. And that is about utilizing other parts that they may have, that the consumer may choose because it may be less expensive, or it could be that they have a perfectly good outside of a screen phone and they don't have a great phone here, but they should be able to put that screen right on. And we should be able to allow them to do so, and it will save consumers money. And so we wanted to make sure that that was addressed. But a request that actually came from Apple that we did okay was that we wanted to make sure that we were disclosing if a independent shop was going to sell somebody a non-OEM part, that was going to be disclosed. That was in there, and that gave them the information, just like when you go to the car mechanic. So that's in the first bullet. The second one is really set on making sure that an example of reducing the functionality or performance of a consumer electronic equipment was really about making sure that they didn't slow the software function of somebody's phone down to make them think that something was wrong with their phone, right? We didn't want them. That's anti-consumer behavior. The third one is about making sure that we really addressed unnecessary and misleading alerts or warnings that come across a phone. We didn't say anything about necessary if there's a safety issue or something that absolutely can have a message, but we really were particular about making sure that that the alerts or warnings could be dismissed by the phone owner, or specifically on phones. This is where parts pairing usually becomes the issue, is around phones. So we wanted to be able to allow them to read it and dismiss it and move on with their choice. So I just wanted to make sure that I addressed that. I also really just want to go back to one of the comments that was made about, that I've talked with a lot of, that we've talked with a lot of folks that industry, OEMs and things about. Tell me about the language in Senate Bill 1596. Tell me why that language won't allow you to parts pair. Tell me why that is dangerous to you. So they usually, I have been requested by, and I am meeting with Apple this afternoon. I will indicate, just because what you see is what you get with me, I did invite them to come and talk about the parts pairing issue today, to be part of this panel. And the reason I did so is because I know that they are meeting with colleagues, and they are meeting with, their executives are meeting with colleagues, and so on, and so, which is perfectly legal. You absolutely can do that. Meeting with folks in these meetings and talking to them about parts pairing and why it's so dangerous. And I really wanted to just have this conversation and hopefully have a productive conversation to just be able to say, here in the open, why is it problematic? Why can we? Instead of continuing to have private briefings, which is the indication that I got today was the invitation that I cannot bring anyone else but my chief of staff with me in these meetings. I can't have other staff members from other offices. I couldn't have advocates that have been working on this. They can't be present in that meeting either. And to me, it feels frustrating as the person who's been working on this bill, where I've really tried to set a very collaborative table. I have had opponents and proponents at this table, and we have really made some considerable changes to Senate Bill 1596 that I still think ultimately keeps our focus on those consumer access. But it is frustrating to continue to play the game of what I call operator when I'm having to take information back and do that. They did want to send a tech rep to come here in the place of them. Unfortunately, the tech rep that was going to be here actually isn't in the business of fixing phones, so it didn't have like that kind of experience. And we wanted to have expert testimony, such as from Apple, to really be able to have that conversation. I know that I've set that table before. We've talked about it. They have chosen not to participate in that table. It's unfortunate that I am then relied on about having to transpire and tell people what Apple has requested of me to bring forward in this bill regarding changes. And I just don't think that's fair for me to have to take that role. And so that's why I have been asking for a more public type of process. And again, I will just make sure to reiterate with folks that the whole focus behind this bill, and believe you me, there are things that we have added to this bill that advocates have not supported, that advocates would rather not have because they look at it as a potential barrier. I'll give you the example, certification. That was a concern to advocates because it was going to add a barrier. But that was very important to my legislative colleagues, and it was very important to make sure that we had that process in here, and that was accepted. It's not in the California bill. And people really think that that's an excellent thing to add. But I want to just say that I have proudly been able, in all these negotiations with different topics and different changes, I can look anyone in the eye and say, this bill is still going to protect consumers' ability to repair their items. And that's ultimately what I have been really focused on myself personally, is making sure that there's parity, that if a company, an OEM, fixes something, and if the company then provides that access for an authorized dealer to fix items, we just want to be able to give that access to the independent dealers, the main street businesses. And I just want to make sure that that focus is still there. And I am open to questions. I'll also sit here too, because I know that Kyle is online and can also kind of go through. Kyle Wiens is from the CEO of iFixit. He has been here before in front of us, but I think he's going to really talk about some some differences in what he brought forward before. So I would love to open up for him, but I'll sit here.
If you don't mind, can we have questions on what Senator has covered up to date?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I have been asked by Apple for a private meeting, and I've agreed to meet with them tomorrow. I'd like to know if you have any indication that they will be publicly stating their remaining concerns to the bill, or are we only going to have closed doors meetings with them? As far as you know.
Thank you, Vice Chair Finley and Senator Golden. I can just tell you what I know in what they have shared with me. It is not a lobbyist rule. This is Apple's kind of rule, is that the Apple says they don't come and give public testimony. They don't partake in obviously the group meetings that I had suggested. They don't take a public role in that, and they wouldn't partake. They don't do like written testimony either, for the record. especially around this. So it's I think for legislators, that's the part that I was trying to address, was how can we can just be in the open and talk about this, about what the issue is, because
So the best you know, there will be no communication other than individual legislator meeting behind closed doors.
I mean,
Best, that's been your experience.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Lieber.
Senator Solomon, does this, so.
Yeah.
What do you think can you just tell me in a word or two why you think the reason they want a parts pair? Why does Apple want, why does anyone, because it's not just Apple, my
Right.
understanding, Apple aside, like companies want to pair their parts
Yeah.
for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us just like why you think that reason is?
I certainly can, but I would love
Okay,
for
well, I'll
Kyle,
ask
who's
Kyle
the expert,
that.
to also, but I can tell you from, thank you, Vice Chair Finley and Senator Lieber. I can just say from experience in listening to what we had that, the meeting before during Ledge Days from Google. One of the things that Google had mentioned as a manufacturer of phones is that they do parts pair. But what they do is they place it, the information that needs to pair that part that you've just put onto that phone, that does require internet. It is accessible on a website that folks can go to. And now I can put that part on my phone and there it is. And I'm not going to get any misleading messages that say, warning, you've put a strange part on there. Like it recognizes that it is yeah.
So does your bill prohibit Apple or any other manufacturer from pairing their parts?
No, it doesn't prohibit it. They are still able to parts pair. And yeah,
So,
thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Finley and Senator Lieber. We'll go to Kyle, but again, we very,
All right.
very narrowly said, we want to keep consumers and give them access. And so you can parts pair, go forth and prosper, but just don't do it where you're inhibiting the small independent dealer from perhaps putting on a likewise a part that might not be an actual Apple OEM part. There are people that can order all sorts of things on the internet right now, but this is a business being able to do that just like your car mechanic can do.
Non-Apple part.
A non-Apple part.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be a screen that is, you know, a non-Apple screen, but it is a screen that, but again, Kyle can explain, you know, to do this. And I think Kyle will also speak to, you know, his experience in working with I mean, he's actually a known parts pairing expert, and he can speak to the experience that he's had with other manufacturers.
Yep.
And what that is. So again, I just want the three is making sure the independent shop, making sure that consumers, you can't do things to impede the speed or the functionality by putting a part on there that, you know, during this parts pairing process. And then third, you can't put unnecessary or misleading messages across a phone that can't be dismissed. It's just like a colleague of ours said, my son fixed his Mercedes and he saved himself $700. And I said, fantastic. Now imagine if Mercedes sent a message across his dash that said, check engine, check engine, check engine. And he takes it to AutoZone and he plugs it in and AutoZone says, well, I don't see any problem as to where, or maybe they say, did you replace the water pump or something? And he said, yeah, I did. And they find that it's because it wasn't a Mercedes brand water pump, that it perhaps was another water pump that was put in there. Still functioning fine, save them potentially money by not doing so. And again, that's what we're asking for with our cell phones and our laptops and our computers, is that my firm belief and why I have been focused on this, like you know, this is so important, is because this is about consumer choice, freedom of choice, period. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Kyle.
Let's go to Kyle.
Okay.
Kyle,
Okay.
welcome.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Finley and Committee. It's thrilled to be here. I'm Kyle Weens, the CEO of iFixit. I'm a Bend native, and I grew up fixing things, working actually in the Apple Authorized Service Center in Bend. iFixit is the global leader in repair. We help people fix all kinds of things. And over the years, as manufacturers have kind of abandoned the practice of paying attention to repair, we kind of stepped up and filled in the gap. And we built an entire open source free ecosystem, starting with Apple, and then we did it with every other manufacturer, where we provide parts, tools, and information, help people fix things, and we're systematically breaking down barriers to repair. As repair legislation and this movement has gathered steam, many companies have said, oh, gee, that's actually a good idea. We should do that. We haven't been doing it for a long time. We should do that. And so we have partnered with a number of companies, with Microsoft and Samsung and Logitech and Google and others, where we build and run the repair programs for them. So Logitech will send people to iFixit, and we'll say, hey, we'll have information on how to repair your mouse, and then we'll sell you the parts that you need to fix your mouse. So that's kind of my role in the ecosystem. I've also been involved in right repair advocacy for a long time. The other context I want to add is we have late breaking news. The European Commission just just agreed to a deal that will roll out enhanced right to repair rules. On Friday, they announced it, and that includes a ban on parts pairing, very similar to the language that you all are discussing here. So I'm happy to get in and talk about kind of the details with parts pairing. We've been working with this for a long time. I worked with the New York Times on kind of a landmark investigation that they did into this. They published this fall that really went into the challenges with the iPhone, but we certainly see this across the board. You see John Deere doing this. You see a few other manufacturers. So I'll stop talking and kind of let you all drive the investigation. I am a resource to be available however I can be helpful.
Questions?
Okay, so Kyle, can I have a question? Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. I think I understand. So if you put a non-original part, is that OEM? Mm-hmm. Okay. Original equipment manufacturer. Okay. If you put a non-OEM part on a piece of equipment, is it the expectation that that should work exactly like an OEM part?
Well, I would say it's even more than an aftermarket part. I would like to be able to take two OEM parts and swap them between devices, and you can't do that right now. So if I take two brand new iPhone 15s and I swap the screens, I lose functionality. And so this is where parts pairing really is about control. So what companies who do this, they say, in order to make the new part work, you basically have to phone home to the manufacturer and say, does this person have permission to repair this specific serial number device? And is this part the one that they're authorized to use? And so it's complete control all the way through.
But
that's really what we're talking about.
But this bill doesn't prohibit that parts pairing.
It prohibits the control piece. So it says you can do the pairing, but what you need to do is enable other folks to do this. So I'll give you an example. We'll just compare Google phones and Apple phones because it's simple. If I install, let's say I swap screens between two Google phones, then Google has a free software tool that I can go online, I plug my phone in, I click the button, and it pairs the new screen. And there's no permission required to Google. I don't have to be logged in. It just does it. If I had done that through Apple, I would have had to have bought that screen from Apple, be logged in to Apple system, and have permission from Apple to do that particular repair. So that's really the difference. Is it's about control and saying who gets to decide that this repair is allowed right now.
I have a lot. Is there a So, okay, so I think I understand it. We've been throwing around this parts pairing thing, and I've been trying to understand what there is there. So, so it's other manufacturers just allow you to do it through. They all parts pair because they all want to make sure that the thing works. Is that right? They all want to make sure that it functions, that functionality.
Yeah. You can think of it like calibration. Sometimes you install a part and you don't need any calibration. Sometimes it's a sophisticated part and there's fine tolerances, and so you need to load some calibration data in. And that's perfectly fine. We get more technically sophisticated all the time. But what some manufacturers are doing is they're using that opportunity, saying, well, we're going to do a software check. Why don't we also throw in a check to make sure that this person is in our ecosystem, has permission to do this repair, that the part, its serial number is the part that we want installed in this device.
And so would would this bill allow you to take a screen off of an old phone and just put it onto a new phone and pair it? It would still allow you to pair it and make sure that it works.
Right, that's the idea, is it says, hey, allow us to do this pairing,
Okay.
but don't require owner's permission in order to do it.
And does that, if I put an old screen on an old phone, it's the only way I can say it, right? Okay, so I put a used screen on a used phone. Is there functionality problems that happen with that?
Yes, if you don't run the pairing process on an iPhone, for example, and the New York Times article really lays this out, and I can share, you sort of exhaustive testing. Like you swap screens between phones and you lose some of the cameras, just like the selfie front-facing camera just stops working. And unless you run the pairing software that you don't have permission to run, you can't make that camera work again.
And does this bill say, hey, Apple, we're going to make you allow us to run that parts pairing on these?
Yes.
And is there safety issues that come into play? Talk to me about safety issues. But I mean, I hear that, and I'm trying to understand if there's there.
Yeah, I mean, we have, since the beginning of time with Right to Repair, safety has been thrown around as this boogeyman. Before Apple decided to support the California bill, Apple was going around Sacramento, taking apart an iPhone for legislators and saying, see if people can open this up, they'll puncture the battery and it will explode. And then the next year, they ended up supporting the legislation and said, actually, we changed our mind, it's okay. The safety concern that I think is being brought up at the moment is one of the parts that Apple is pairing is a LiDAR sensor. So it's the laser that kind of helps identify your face. The ask is make the same safe tool that you're using for your technicians available to everybody else. It's not like let's go haywire and wire the thing totally differently. Let's just use the same tool that you've developed. So no, there shouldn't be safety issues.
But if you use an old screen on an old phone and it doesn't pair well, I mean, it doesn't work under your bill, like let's just say they're like, oh gosh, those are not compatible, and we as Apple say we can't pair those, then that's okay, right? I mean, you would say you can't pair those because this screen doesn't fit on this phone. Does the bill allow for that? Because I'm thinking that you've got manufacturers that maybe change something in their screens. I don't know enough about it. But I'm trying to understand that if technology changes.
Yeah. Well, so just to be clear, like the phone and whatever phone it is, phone model number 10, the screen will probably not fit in phone model number 11 or model number 12.
Yeah.
They're just, every time they do a generation, it's different. So you have to swap a 10 screen for a 10 screen.
Okay.
So we're really just saying if I'm Free Geek and so a school donates 100 10s to me, and half of them are broken, can I take those and combine them and make some phones that are usable and sell them? And right now,
you cannot.
They just stopped doing iPhones entirely. They do other devices, but when they start dealing with the parts pairing, it just diminishes the profitability of their operation so much. They just stop. And I talked with a technician who worked at a school, and he said, I used to fix these things all the time, and just every year there's more and more of these parts that are paired, and it's more and more difficult to figure out what I can do, and I've just stopped fixing these things altogether.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Thank you for your indulgence.
So, Kyle, let me ask you a question. So, all manufacturers require synchronization of their components when you switch them out.
Not all. Not all.
Most of them do. I mean, I'm thinking about if you switch a windshield in your car, they have to come and synchronize it so all your cameras and all your sensors work.
Absolutely.
So if you switch batteries on a phone, it's going to sync it and say, yeah, this battery fits, this works, it's got the correct voltage. And that pairing, that's called not synchronization or pairing, and that's what we're after.
Correct.
And so everyone has a mechanism to do that now. Typically, it's remote, and they can just do it, and they don't have to go through a specific source. They don't have to log into Apple to do that. That's the difference. Is that
correct? Right.
Okay. They'll give the repair shop will have that tool. So what assurances could be there? Because I can go online and buy a battery from Ajax Battery Supply, and they will sell me a battery, and it will say it's for my Apple phone, which I don't have an Apple phone, but it says it's for my phone, and it will fit and have the voltage required. What safety checks are there to ensure that 3 days later, my phone doesn't smoke in my pocket?
Can I add something to that, Vice Chair Finley? So one of our colleagues talked to me and he said, Janine, I fixed my iPhone 6. I went onto Amazon. I bought the part. I bought the tool. I knew how to fix it. I watched a YouTube video. I went on and I was able to fix this particular part. That part didn't require any parts pairing. Didn't have to go on, right? That particular thing. As Kyle mentioned, some procedures do require that calibration and that syncing. But I said, well, good on you, but you don't know what you ordered. You don't know that you ordered a part that is corrupt that you put inside your cell phone. You don't know, but that's currently available now. They can go on and they can order any parts by Parts R Us. I mean, I hope that's not a real company. I'm just making that up.
Ajax
They
Parts.
could be. Okay, there we go. So they can currently do that now. What we're asking people is to think about when you're driving in your own vehicle with your car, you as a purchaser of that car, as the owner of that car that's made those 52, 42, 36 easy payments, you own that car. You should be able to choose whether you take it to Chevrolet or Ford, whichever. I don't want to offend anybody else there too either. You can take it to the dealer. You can take it to the dealer. You can take it to one of their authorized dealers that one they have a partner agreement with. You could take it to your Joe's mechanic that you have been having a relationship with your entire life. And, you have a trusted relationship, or, you want to support this small business. Or if you're so inclined with your car, you could fix it yourself, like my husband. He just gifted. So we want to just be able, that's again, the full purpose of this bill is about consumer access to choice, and give them that choice to how they are going to get their item repaired. And so while some of those parts are available online, you will know that in some of the things that we okayed with specifically, whether they came from Apple or other advocates, other OEMs, we would make those disclosures to people. You are purchasing this part, but you are getting a non-OEM part. Are you okay with that? It's $40. The Apple part's $95. Are you making that choice? Why, yes, I am. And then they've disclosed it to me. They have to have things in there indicating their certification process in their office window. There's just a lot of protections that we have added. And I think that's ultimately with me, and I want to say this is final. This is Janine saying this, but when people have asked me about why can't you just take that out? Just take those lines 7 through 14 out. And I look at them and I said, because I think you're creating two lanes for this bill. You're creating a lane that everyone else is in, and then you're creating a lane that Apple is in. And to me, I find that to be unfair, because the driving focus of this bill has been about consumers, and they should be able to have that choice.
Any other questions? I'd like to say before you can leave that your comparative charts that you had between last year's bill and this year's bill, they're not the same.
They're not.
You have done an incredible job of addressing concerns and listening to people, standing on a street corner, taking input from folks driving by to make this as an acceptable as possible bill. And you've done an incredible job.
Thank you.
I appreciate your help with that. Thank you.
I sincerely appreciate that.
I echo that. Okay.
Thank you.
You want your gavel back?
Can I keep the gavel now?